Hello and welcome to my podcast where we explore people and life. Today's episode is about shyness and the journey of finding your voice. Shyness isn't the same as introversion. Is often about holding back, feeling unseen, or struggling to express what's inside. Even when there is a rich inner world waiting to be shared. For many people, for us, that silence is shaped by early experiences, fear, or the belief that their voice doesn't matter. Today, we are joining by someone who knows that journey deeply. Denette Byatt is the author and illustrator of the beautiful book When I Was Your Age. Through creativity and storytelling, she found the way to express what once felt difficult to say loud. In this conversation, we explore her path from shyness to self expression, what was hard, and what helped, and how writing became a bridge to her voice. I'm excited to welcome her, Denette Byatt. Thank you very much, Danette, being on my show, and I'm so excited to talking to you today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to speak with you as well.
Danette, how did shyness show up for you in the early age?
Oh gosh, I was your poster child for being the shy kid. Shy actually was a dirty term in my world because I heard it so often. And I let me tell you, I couldn't even speak to my kindergarten teacher when I was in school.
Oh,
I had to use the washroom. I always had a friend go and talk to my teacher for me. And it carried on through my childhood. I remember in my teenage years hiding behind the kid that sat in front of me in class so that the teacher wouldn't call on me out of the blue. I never, ever raised my hand. And I'd even move through the hallways at school hiding behind my hair as if that would make me unseen to everyone else. And I heard so often from people, they almost demanded to know, why are you so shy? What's wrong with you? Why don't you speak? And instead of being encouraging in any way whatsoever, it actually made it worse. And I began to see myself as being bad or wrong in some way for it, as if I just couldn't be like everyone else. And that's why it became not just a fear of using my voice, it became a fear of actually being physically seen as well, because I just felt like there was something wrong with me, that everyone else had it together and I didn't.
when did you find the way to come out of shyness? Because you find like this is the barrier between people and you, so you're hiding from. Have you ever like found the reason behind of your shyness?
I believe the reason behind my shyness was I grew up in my childhood home. It just wasn't okay for children to be seen and heard. Um, we were meant to always follow what our parents did and said, and didn't have our own almost sense of identity for ourselves. And I began to feel like I just had to conform to the family system and be what my parents wanted me to be, not be my own individual who had my own thoughts and opinions on things and own preferences. And I was always a very sensitive, creative child too, which was very different from my other family members. So I always felt like a black sheep in my own family, so to speak. And because of this, I just suppressed my voice and believed that it was better to fit in than to stand out.
What really helped you?
Well, a couple of things helped. For one, I had amazing friends growing up.
That's
From
great.
grade 3 onwards, I had a couple of really close, amazing friends. And I could at least be myself with them. And I'm just so grateful for them because their encouragement and their acceptance of me was everything. And another thing was this I want to give credit to my mom, because this is something I'm really glad that she did, but she constantly would try to get me out of my comfort zone, and she would make me go and talk to people. Like, even if we were going through a checkout line at a store, she'd have me speak to the cashier and give them the change. And even just saying hello and thank you to a cashier was so frightening to me. But the more you do it, the more you realize that it's actually okay. Like, nothing's bad that'll come from it. People will accept you for you. And eventually you learn and you get confidence from doing rather than being shielded from the world and never speaking at all.
When did you find your voice and start writing? What age have you started that writing book and speak out through words?
I actually really love this question because I came at it at a later stage in life. And a lot of people think that if you didn't write in your childhood, or you can insert whatever you like, any sort of passion, that it just means that it's not for you. And I came about it in such a roundabout way. I was always a visual artist uh, right from the day I could hold a crayon.
Oh.
People applauded me for it and gave me encouragement. And I went on to do illustration, graphic design, but I never connected with writing. And a big part of that was because I had such a hard time in English class in high school. I didn't connect with what we studied. Essay writing was just dreadfully boring to me, like not creative whatsoever, too structured.
Yes.
And I just assumed that writing just wasn't for me. And so fast forward many years, this was about 10 years or so ago, I was developing my portfolio for children's book illustration and wanting to do that professionally. And I began going to all sorts of conferences in the publishing world, learning more about what publishers were looking for, what editors and literary agents were looking for. And I kept hearing time and time again that publishers absolutely love children's book illustrators who can also write.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I could try it. It's less than 1,000 words.
Yes.
And you tell so much of the stories through the illustrations as well.
Yes.
It's like a marriage between the two, the visuals and the actual words.
Yes.
So I thought that this was not very intimidating at all, and I would try my hand at it. And I did, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with writing. And I would have to say, probably even more so than illustration, which completely blew my mind.
Okay.
Because of
this kind of surprise to yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Looking back, though, I should have realized that I was a storyteller right out of the gate, though, because when I was a kid, even though I wasn't actually physically writing any of my stories down, I was always such a daydreamer, and I was always crafting stories in my mind. Every Sunday morning church service,
Okay.
I never listened to a single sermon, but I was storytelling in my mind.
Okay.
And so it shouldn't have come as a surprise to me, but
Okay.
it was,
It was.
because it was a talent or a passion of mine that I never knew I had.
How long it take to write you that book? Your book is when I was your age, you published and wrote.
Yeah, my book, When I Was Your Age, children's picture book, which I illustrated and wrote myself. Oh gosh, I couldn't tell you how many hours I put into it, but I went through at least 10 drafts. And you also do, as an illustrator, you'll do a whole picture book dummy, it's called, which is a sketched style of book,
Okay.
and do a couple of sample finished spreads, which you'll then approach literary agents with. And then once you have an agent, they'll then approach editors with. So there was quite a few drafts of the writing along with the dummy part of things. And then that's all before I got the publishing deal. Once you get the publishing deal, you then have to go through a number more rounds of edits with the editor and art director. So it was a long time, and nothing moves quickly in the publishing world either.
Okay.
From
So only applying on a children's book or every book?
Every book.
Oh, every book. Okay.
If you do traditional publishing, where you go with an established publishing company, it's a quite lengthy process.
Okay.
Even
how
from
long, like if a person wanted to write a story, and how long it would take?
Well, every book and everyone's story is unique to them.
Yeah. Okay.
For me in particular, I think it was about 2 years of first and foremost for me coming back to the story to do many revisions.
Okay.
Before I then got a literary agent.
Okay.
It took her 2.5 years to sell my book, mainly because it's not a popular thing for this age group of children to have a sci-fi element to it.
Yes.
So publishers typically don't want to take risks.
Okay.
So
yeah.
that's why it took her so long, and many rounds of rejections. Probably over 50 anyway, I would say. So you really have to grow a thick skin and be patient in the process. And then once I signed on with the publisher, it was 1.5 years before it actually came out on shelves, because there's so much that goes into the process. So many people collaborating on it, and then they have to do the printing and marketing and all that goes behind it. So all in all, it was 4 to 5 years from my very first draft to when it was on shelves.
Oh, congratulations.
It could be faster than that for people, though, depending on how quickly it sells. But you just never know when you go into it, if it even will sell.
Okay. Yeah. In terms of writing, so writing has really helped you with your shyness. So if you look back, what would you see in your childhood? Think at the moment it would help more if you would know.
I think writing is a great way to process your emotion and reflect on your experiences as well.
Yes.
I mean, that's why so many people do quite well with journaling.
Yes.
But I would say that any form of writing you can learn from. As humans, we learn so much through storytelling. That's how we pass on knowledge to each generation.
Yes.
And even when I'm writing fiction, I relate to my characters so much, and I feel so deeply for them. And I realize that it's not even my characters that I'm feeling for. It's an inner part of myself who is relating to their experiences, even though they're going through these fantastical things that isn't on surface level, what I've gone through, it still relates.
Yes.
It's still the human experience. And it always carries tones of what you've gone through in your own life as well, the experiences you've had.
Yeah.
And so there's been times when I've been at my keyboard, just like typing furiously away, writing fiction, but crying my eyes out in such a cathartic way.
And I'm more curious than it. With your shyness, how would if person going through now in shyness and hiding self from people, how would they come from? What would advise if someone ask you about? You said your mother helped you a lot with the forcing you and helping you to come out of it.
I would first and foremost want to reassure that shy person that they're not alone, and not everyone is meant to be outgoing and the loudest person in the room. And it's perfectly okay to find their voice in their own time and space, and that they do actually have a voice. And the way that you can best go about finding that voice is being brave and taking small risks. You don't have to make big movements, but slowly over time, the more you put yourself out there in very small ways, the more you gain confidence. I think confidence is one of those things where you really need to put yourself out there, and you gain confidence by doing and putting in action. You can't just heal on your own by yourself with no one seeing you. I believe that confidence is one of those things where you really need to put in action in order to build it and gain more confidence. So by taking small steps over time, you'll build it more and more. And you can do that in very small ways. And just making sure that you're doing it in safe environments, finding safe people in the world, whether it be friends or mentors, or if you're in the publishing world at all, there's just so many amazing people that are in the publishing world in varying capacities, whether that be agenting or editing, art direction. I found my people there. So
That's
I
good.
I would say to anyone who's struggling to find their voice and with shyness, that just keep putting yourself out there in small ways, and you'll find your voice and you'll find your people.
Any story would you like to share, like it's really helped you while you were going through your shyness period and it really helped you?
So as I was saying about putting yourself out there in ways where you're brave and you build confidence, once I was in the publishing world as an author, there's so much more an author needs to do, not just sit behind a computer and write and then expect your book to get it on the world, for people to know about your book, for people to connect with your book. They're really also connecting with you as a person and as a brand, you could say, as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I grew exponentially once I was a published author and realized that I would try these different things out. I would go to do an author speaking event and connect with children that came out to the event and their parents that came along with them, the librarian. And I'd be put behind a microphone where this was very new to me. I'm not someone who's ever really been behind a microphone.
How did you
And
feel that time?
Well, it's funny because I get such high anxiety leading up to an event. The moment I'm behind a microphone, it
Mhm.
feels so natural to me, like I
Okay.
was meant to be there. And it's just wild because you never expect as a shy person to connect so much with speaking.
Yeah.
So I feel like just trying new things and just being okay with people hearing you speak and seeing you as you speak and sharing a story that has meant so much to you that comes from your heart, that is really sharing your heart and soul with the world when you do any sort of creative project, not just writing, but you're seen in such a vulnerable way because that's just a piece of you. It's almost like your baby that you're birthing into the world,
Yes.
and just getting really great reception from it. I had a number of children and adults just really connect with my book, and people telling me how creative it is and how just beautiful the book is. And that just really touched my heart. And it also it also builds character too, because at the same time, not everyone will love your book.
Yeah.
And you do really learn to not take things personally too, which really grows you as a person as well.
Yes.
You realize that your voice isn't meant for everyone.
Yes.
There's no reason to try to chameleon yourself or conform
Yeah.
to what you think others will want to hear from you. You learn to just be yourself, be okay with the people who don't connect with your voice, and just realize that the ones who it really touches, those are your people. And it just means everything at a personal level to be that voice for them in whatever, however that looks for them, whether it's to give them hope or to inspire them in some way.
Mhm.
It's it's been very rewarding to be an author, just from that personal standpoint as well. Not just to say, oh, I accomplished something. I wrote and illustrated and published a book, but really how much I've grown
Yeah.
in that process.
That's truly matters, actually, because what you want to do, especially in as an artist or any other thing in real life, it's not everyone gonna like what you gonna do or what you like to do.
Right.
Like when I like my thought, like I wanted to do podcasting, and I'm not sure like who gonna watch and who gonna like it. And I haven't got any bad feedback, but I am well aware like people would do certain things and criticism would be there on the plate. So I have to be ready because I'm hearing from people like you always getting criticism no matter
Yes.
what you do, how best and people do still they get criticism. So
Yeah.
that's the part of the journey being a artist, and that's beautiful, and we can grow with ourselves as well, because we can take a criticism like so wholeheartedly. So that's good. I think it's really great attribute to have in our self.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really not about you a lot of the times as well.
Yeah.
It's about the person giving the criticism.
Yeah.
They just have a different lens where
Yes.
they're just not meant to connect with you. That
Yes.
it's really nothing personal at all.
Yeah.
So you just shrug it off. I got a really negative review, and it's funny because well, for one, they always tell authors, don't look at the reviews.
Okay.
But then when you hear that, you get curious and you want to look at the reviews.
Yes, definitely.
So actually, I got this really horrible review, and it's quite funny because it was my worst fear come true. But I actually laughed when I received this review. And they always tell authors not to check reviews because they can be quite harsh sometimes. And it's just, there's no value really in reading reviews.
Yeah.
But when you hear that, your curiosity comes out and you're like, oh, I need to check to see what people think of my book. And so this review in particular really hit a nerve because one of the things I fear about being seen is that people see me as being weird and different. I have a real hard time with the term weird, which I've been learning to reframe actually as being more different and innovative. And innovative is something that's like quite valuable in society.
Yes.
So that it's not a negative thing in any way to be weird. But this woman, she came right out and said, this is the weirdest book I've ever read in my life. I do not recommend it. And what really made me laugh about it, though, is before she said that, her very first sentence was, I don't like sci-fi. And so right away, I was just shaking my head and thinking to myself, well, you've lost all credibility because you can tell from the front cover of my book that it's a sci-fi book.
Yes.
If sci-fi isn't your thing, don't read it.
Yes.
So I was actually quite glad that I read that review because it took away the fear out of reading a bad review and taking it personally.
Yes.
And you just realize that everyone is going to have their own opinion, and sometimes you're just going to get strange comments that just don't even make sense for your book and where you were coming from. So
definitely.
I think after that, I really grew from it and was just like, I don't need to read any more reviews after that.
More review like this. A reason why that thing happened or not.
Exactly.
Comment is interesting to read. I think I do read a lot of comments about videos which I find interesting or weird, and I love to do it. How did shyness shape your relationship style early on, and how has that changed over the time?
Yes. So when I was younger, and it's only been the last 7 to 8 years, I would say, when I've gone on a personal healing journey myself, that where I've learned more of a healthy communication style, you could say, and boundary setting. I didn't even know what a boundary was before about 7 years ago.
Okay.
So how that looked growing up, that was very much people pleasing, always putting someone else's feelings and beliefs, thoughts, everything before my own, and never speaking up for myself. And basically it's self-betrayal over and over again. You're not really being yourself, and you're biting your tongue a lot, not saying what you need. And you find that you just lose yourself in another person, and especially in a romantic relationship. But that same could be said for any relationship, even your boss in the workplace. If you're not speaking up for yourself,
Yes.
you're not really being yourself, you're not being heard.
Yes.
And I basically just learned in going through my healing journey that I really need, I was really showing up in a pretty unhealthy way and not being myself. I actually thought back then that I was the best girlfriend, the best friend, the best employee, because I was so accommodating to everyone. Like, how can a person not love me for being that way? Because I'm giving them everything they want. But looking back now, I was withholding myself from those people and robbing them of experiencing and getting to know the real Denette. And not only that, but it's so damaging for you as a person to never ever be vulnerable enough to share yourself in that way. So you, at a certain point, I just decided I needed to be more brave in relationship, to show up authentically. And if someone was going to reject me for me being my true self, then they're just not for me. And I will eventually, I just knew deep in my heart that there would be people in the world that would accept me for me being my authentic self. And it would just be that much more of a deeper connection and a healthier relationship overall for showing up as myself.
Yeah. So how do overcome with that? Did you communicate with your partner like which you not used to do in your workplace, or how do you overcome with that?
Yeah, so I think in every type of relationship I have in my life, I started showing up a bit differently, slowly and surely over time, where I would voice, let's say it was a friend wanting to make plans with me. And I take my writing very seriously, even though I make my own schedule with it. It's sacred time to me, and I make it a priority. So if my friends wanted to make plans with me, but it was interfering with my writing time, I had to trust myself enough to speak up for myself and say to my friend, actually, I'm busy then, and can we find another day and time to do it? And just showing up like that over time, you get more confidence and you're less fearful of others' reactions too. I think that was my biggest concern when I was people pleasing. I was always so afraid that I would hurt someone's feelings, that they would lash out at me in some way, they would judge me. I always had this very negative view in my mind of people just being very upset with me if I did voice needs and boundaries. But the healthy people in the world won't do that. So you also go through a process where you really evaluate the relationships you have in your life.
They're actually opposite. They understand you and they appreciate what you are doing, and they supported you. Denise, how do you relate your shyness now? Has it changed, softened, or become strengthened?
That's a really interesting question. I don't love seeing myself as a shy person anymore.
That's
but
good.
that goes to show you that I probably have a lot more to work on in that regard if I'm triggered by the word shy. But I'm still not the most outgoing person in the room. And I think it's something that will be a lifelong journey for me. Healing doesn't just happen overnight, it's a process. And I would say that I've found strength in my shyness, though. There's actually positives that come from it, because I've become an amazing listener in my life. And that's that's half of the form of communication.
Yes.
We're not meant to just always talk and not listen to others.
Yes.
So it's actually made me able to not only listen to people in the relationships I've had with them and have them feel heard, but it's made me a great writer too, because when you're really observing everything around you and listening to people speak and observing their body language and how they show up, it's all creating this inner kind of like this inspiration box almost inside you that you can pull from in your
Okay.
writing. And I think I've begun to see the way that I've been shy and quiet in my life as being exactly who I was meant to be and to grow from it and to be able to share that, not just in my writing, but to help others relate to me as well, those who may be going through something similar as well. But it makes me more human when I share stories like this because we're not all meant to be perfect. And when
Yes.
we share our flaws and our struggles, we can be more relatable to people and to help them know that they can get through it too, to give them hope for their own future and their own overcoming of the shyness or whatever they're struggling with in life.
Yes.
That just happens to be a big one for me that I can help people with. And I'm okay. I'm okay at this point with not being the loudest person in the room. I'm okay with not being the center of attention. Of course, as I mentioned, I love being behind a microphone. So when I am, I do like the spotlight on me now and again.
That's good.
But yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Yeah. But going to a party when there's a lot of people there, I don't need to be the loudest one and on display in that way.
I'm also like, okay, I like to be quiet, and I love my space. I
Mhm.
just like to chat with my relatives and immediate family,
Mhm.
not with everyone. I wanted to open. But when you're working on with people and you get to know people, you start talking, then I find more comfort zone.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's not has to be, we have to be outspoken and jumping all the time. The way you are, it's really great.
I agree. And I also am the kind of person who really likes to be thoughtful about what I say as well. I think I think there's a lot of voices and things that are said in the world that are
Yes.
just repeats of what others have said, or there's like nothing new in
Yes.
what people say. And I like to be thoughtful and take my time
Yeah.
before I speak, before I write and communicate
Yes.
in any way what my core message is and
Mhm.
really make sure that it's coming from my heart and that it's something meaningful
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
So it's just a very different style of communication, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong just because
Mm.
I'm not outgoing like someone else is.
Yeah, no.
And I'm never going to be the most witty person in the room either. I really envy people for that.
Like I do like witty people and the way they change the environment whilst 10 or 15 people sitting and they just listening to that person. And that's really great skill. I really like that skill to have.
That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And there's so many people in the world, so many different types of people and ways
Yeah.
of relating and showing up in the world. And thank God for that, because it keeps things interesting.
Yes.
We're not meant to be carbon copies of one another.
No. We're supposed to be different, and that's why we are unique and interesting in each other. So it's everyone is same. So it's so boring in that around the
Exactly.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it comes to writing too, one of the first things you learn about developing a character is to give them flaws right out on page one, sort of thing. You
Okay.
don't want to write a perfect character, because people will stop reading your book
Yeah.
right away. They're just not going to relate to your character. They might not piece it together. They might not realize what they don't like about your book, but what it is they're not connecting with your
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of hook you give in the beginning, then your character developing throughout the book, how that character surpass the obstacle in their life and struggle with their self or whatever in that book. It's always amazing. Like books and movies, always we enjoyed to watch. Danette, what would you say in the end about shyness, people who are struggling with that? What would you suggest in the end?
you really got to connect with your own heart and learn self-acceptance, and you'll find your voice in coming from a heart-led place, where if you have love for yourself first and foremost, you're able to better express that in the world, and even the way that you show up in your own creativity. If you are a creative person, I mean, everyone is creative in varying ways,
Yes.
but if you're a writer, for example, you won't really find your true message with your books until you really find that love within yourself and accept yourself. And your shyness will lessen with time once you have accepted it as a part of yourself and a journey you were meant to be on, and to not see yourself as a different person in the future, some false version of yourself, because we really only have the present moment, and
No.
we can enjoy this present moment wherever we're at. Even if we're still striving towards a goal, we're still finding that confidence, finding our voice. It's about who you are today and being grateful for yourself and your own heart for what you've been through, and to give yourself grace as you go through that process as well.
Thank you so much for being on my show and sharing your experience as a being person. And I'm glad you came. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so
And
much
see you
for having
next
me.
time.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
with your next book.
Yes.
Thank you for watching and listening today. If you are ever felt quiet, hesitant, and unsure how to speak your truth, I hope this conversation reminder you that your voice matters. It doesn't have to be loud, as Danette mentioned in throughout her podcast. It doesn't have to be perfect. Finding your voice is a journey, and whatever you are on that path, you are not alone. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time in my podcast here. Keep watching. Thank you so much.